I'm Peter Killeen.
8 minutes after 7 o'clock, 7:08. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the program, and welcome in studio Samantha, who is here from SMASH,
Yay!
which is the Southern Maryland area secular humanist. Thank you, ma'am, for being here today. Am I out of line by saying ma'am?
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay, all right, good.
I mean, it makes it feel like I'm my mother or something
Sure.
like that, but yeah, other than that, it's fine.
Welcome to the show. I'm thrilled to have you here, and thank you for coming in.
Hey, can you explain to listeners, Samantha, what is a humanist? A secular humanist. Well, secular is kind of in it, but
yeah.
You want the 30-second elevator speech?
Yeah,
sure,
please,
whatever you're comfortable
That's
with.
great.
Yeah. So I mean, this is a conversation we could have for a full hour on its own.
Oh,
so.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
Yeah. So the elevator speech that I give people is basically that humanists believe that you can be good without God. We don't believe in the supernatural, so we don't believe in heaven. We don't believe in hell. We don't believe in gods. We do believe, obviously, empirical, rational evidence of things, so science. So we believe in things like evolution and climate change. And we believe that while you're here on this earth, you should do the very best you can while you're here for the one life that you have. And so that includes things like taking care of the environment, taking care of your fellow humans, making sure that you are just living to your highest ethical standards that you can while you're here on this earth for your one life.
Are you an atheist?
Yeah, I am as well.
An atheist, okay.
Most secular humanists are atheists, and there's two different labels there. What I tell people is that atheism describes what I don't believe in. Humanism describes what I do believe in.
Okay, gotcha.
You ever see one of those balloons that are about to pop? That is what I am right now. I have so many areas that I want to explore.
Full hour.
Seriously, we could go on forever.
Okay, but hold on a second.
You're off air at 10.
Yes.
All right.
So let's talk about which I have been getting emails about. I've been getting phone calls about the Drag Queen Story Hour, which is happening Sunday at the Lexington Park Library. You folks are sponsoring it, SMASH, the Southern Maryland Area Secular Humanists. You're sponsoring it, not the library. The library is just a
Star
venue.
98.3.
Oh,
Sorry.
bring that down. And so I think people are... I don't want to speak
Well,
for
let's
people.
start with the very basic question.
It's a drag queen, a man dressed as a princess sometimes, or a character, right? Reading stories to 3 to 8-year-olds.
So the basic question out of the gate is, why?
Okay, so you had a lot of questions in there, so let me deconstruct that a little bit. So the first thing is the library 100% is not sponsoring this. I don't want to be more clear about that.
Yeah, I think that's established.
I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, we caught the attention of a Facebook page, The Activist Mommy, and she has 600,000 followers. And she posted Michael Blackwell, the library director's name, phone number, and extension.
Oh, come on now.
And they got flooded with calls.
Sure.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so that's the first thing I want to make real clear. We have rented the room according to library policies. So
Sure.
it's our room. The library has nothing to do with it. They're not sponsored.
We had an recovering alcoholic say yesterday. Listen, we have Alcoholics Anonymous at the library, so kids are around a bunch of alcoholics. So what are you going to do?
Yeah.
It's just a room.
And there's church groups, and there's Bible
Sure.
study groups, and there's all sorts of groups, and we meet there regularly. The second thing I want to clarify is we are sponsoring it, also in conjunction with PFLAG of Leonardtown.
Oh, okay.
So there's an LGBTQ
What is
group.
PFLAG?
Parents of lesbian, help me
And
out.
gays is what
And
it was
gays.
formerly known as. Now it's just sort of known as PFLAG because that's not real inclusive of everybody else.
And it's all about
We got so much
inclusivity.
ground to cover.
I know.
Go
right,
ahead.
So anyway, they are also sponsoring it and
Good.
involved in it.
So what is the thrust of it? Why are you doing it?
So the whole idea came about a little while ago, and actually the person who's going to be our performer had tried to do the event in Charles County around the same time as our sex ed class, and they had got denied access to the rooms. And so
At the library?
At the library. So
Really?
we kind of talked about it back then. And then PFLAG actually started after the sex ed class, and the LGBTQ community in Southern Maryland started organizing more events and peer-to-peer things and stuff like that, really honestly as a result of the outcry from the sex ed class. And so
Right.
we kind of have
And if
come
people
together.
aren't familiar with that, because it was controversial, it was in the papers, we discussed it a little bit here, and that's when we first met.
Yeah,
when
you
we
called him.
right.
from the side of 95 somewhere.
You
I
were
forget where I
driving
was.
somewhere, exactly, and you were good enough to call us because you were listening. But that was a sex ed class for teens. Parents, not allowed. Parents had to sign a waiver if they wanted their kids in. And it was a sex ed class about maybe things that kids wanted to ask without their parents around. And people lost their minds about that. And you got holy water thrown on you, and your stepson was assaulted. It was just I call it assault. Obviously,
No,
the
it's assault.
authorities didn't
Listen.
call.
No, they did. They
Oh,
wanted.
did they call it?
It's assault. And this is what I'm always talking about. Look, we have to get to a place in this country where we can have disagreements and it doesn't end up with people being assaulted. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why the extremists on both sides of the aisle are dominating the conversation.
Right.
But they are. And it makes me very, very angry, which I guess is a kind of a snake eating its own tail, because then I want to go out and punch somebody.
Right.
And around it goes. But we're talking with Samantha. She's from the Southern Maryland area secular humanist.
So you said to this actor or performer?
Yeah.
Well, let's do it in Lexington Park.
Yeah, so I mean, the conversation was ongoing, obviously, since then, and you've seen, of course, in the media that drag queen story hours are a thing that people are doing.
Oh yeah.
And so we decided, PFLAG and SMASH decided to hold this event in conjunction with Southern Maryland Pride events. There's a Pride
In
celebration in Solomon's the day
parade,
before,
right.
so it's Pride weekend in Southern
And
Maryland.
it's Pride Month, by the way.
I call it cutely Tiny Pride because I go to DC Pride, Baltimore Pride, Annapolis Pride, and then we have Tiny Pride.
Tiny
I
Pride.
love
But
it.
it is
What
it
do
is
you
Pride
say-
Month, by the way, June.
Yeah.
What do you say to people who say this? What you're trying to do is trying to legitimize, or, for lack of a better word, normalize abnormal behavior.
So I would argue it's not necessarily abnormal behavior, firstly. And I would say that, yes, I am trying to normalize it. I'm trying to normalize the idea that there are infinite versions of human beings on this planet. And why is that wrong? You and I don't agree on things, and just like you just said, why can't we sit down and have a conversation like we are? Maybe you'll learn a bit about humanism. Maybe I'll learn about what it's like to be T-Bone, and we'll both.
It's a fun,
we'll
funky
both
ride.
Have a conversation, right?
scary
It's a fun,
ride.
funky
Scary.
ride. Buckle up. You're going to enjoy it.
Right. But instead, people are so upset about this fact that there's going to be a drag queen there. And again, the drag queen is going to read a story.
What's the story?
What is the story?
We have several books. They are all kind of talking about how it's okay to be different, that you don't necessarily have to fit inside the lines that we're drawn.
Does the
but
performer hold on? Does the performer ever say, "I'm actually a man dressed as a princess"? Does that happen?
So it depends on the event. In this case, I feel like, because I've had lots of emails with the parents that are bringing their children.
Sure.
I feel like most of the parents have already talked to their kids about that.
Sure.
And we will have a sort of short thing, but we're talking about 3-year-olds to 8-year-olds.
Correct.
Therein lies the rub, though.
Hang on. So they don't necessarily have the same issue that you, T-Bone, have it as an adult, right? They're used to seeing people dress up. They're used to make-believe. They're used to fun. They're used to pretend. So anyway, back to the original point. We're going to read a book. We're going to have a craft activity.
Okay.
We might sing a song.
Okay.
That's what the controversy is all about.
Fair enough.
Okay?
And again, the conversation begins and ends with,
Yeah.
if you find it offensive, don't go.
Exactly.
Right.
Don't go.
Stay home.
And
I
that's
think
and that's
3
really
to-
that's
I-
the end of it.
I think 3 to 8 is
Well, that's the other issue.
too young for, just in my opinion, is just too young for a man dressed as a princess to say, "I'm a man," and this is who I am, and then maybe have it devolve into a conversation about being gay or something like that from 3 to 8. Now, I like to think that I've taught my son to be all-inclusive, be somebody who looks at people who are different than you and live differently than you, be patient, maybe ask questions, but also stay away from crazy. Sometimes you get the crazy and stay away from that, but try to be inclusive when you see somebody who is different. But I didn't teach that between 3 and 8. I taught that when he was a little bit older than that. So, that probably wouldn't be something I would take him to. But, I mean, singing songs
Sure,
and
so
telling
stay
a story. Right. Sure. Which
So again, I think that people need to understand there are, in Southern Maryland, obviously we are not a monolith of people, right? We are not all the same. We sometimes,
Correct.
I feel like, have trouble in Southern Maryland understanding that. So this is just an opportunity. A lot of the parents who are bringing their children either are LGBTQIA plus themselves.
Gotcha.
Or they have a child who already is exhibiting behavior that's a little bit gender bendy, right? I mean, what if I want to have a boy who likes to wear high heels? What if I want to have a girl who likes to play with dump trucks, right? There's already, we draw these kids into these gender norms as they develop. And it starts before 3.
Yeah, but here's the rub.
I was a tomboy, Samantha. I played ball. I was on the farm. It was never a gender bending. I never thought, well, I want to be a boy. It was just, I like to do boy things.
We're not saying that necessarily children want to be the opposite gender. Again, that's a whole conversation about transgenderism versus drag queen and make pretend and make believe.
Make believe.
I'm
Gotcha.
probably not actually, I mean, I'm happy to answer questions that I'm capable of answering. I don't want to speak for that community.
Gotcha.
Necessarily. You guys really should have another expert on. I can point you in a direction.
Sure.
For talking about those issues specifically. But I do think that, what we have to understand is that children are boxed in at a pretty young age, right? You're a boy, don't cry when you get hurt. You're a girl, it's okay.
I don't
right?
think that happens.
It does happen.
It doesn't happen.
It does happen.
Okay.
And so
I'm saying it doesn't. You're saying it does. Well, who's more valid?
Because I've seen it happen, and I've seen it happen with...
But everything happens to a certain extent. And what I'm saying is this is what happens in our society now. Everybody picks the one guy who is being a jerk and goes, that's what it has. There you go. That's what it is. That's what masculinity is. That's toxic masculinity. No, that's just a jerk.
Right.
But we've lost the ability to simply disseminate and make rational assessments of people. Now we have to go through this labyrinth of ridiculous dialogue. Why can't a jerk just be a jerk? It has nothing to do with anything.
I think we can identify jerks.
Really?
I'm sure
Because you just said some guy saying to his son, boys don't cry. That's normal. It's not normal.
But it happens a lot.
It doesn't happen a lot. I've never said it once to my son.
No, you haven't, but actually...
I never had it said to me once. And let me tell you, I grew up in a pretty masculine house.
Yes, toxic masculinity.
Never once
in
was
that
it said
house.
to me.
Toxic masculinity.
So I don't think it does happen.
So you have...
I shouldn't say it doesn't happen. I don't think it happens en masse. I don't think it does.
Just because it didn't happen to you
Just
in your
because
household?
Because I'm a guy living in the world and I look around.
I just love being here live with you, too. It's fantastic. I always hear it on air and watch you bicker.
Can you stick around for a few minutes?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I got to pay bills.
Oh my gosh!
I know.
So, but first, before we pay the bills, you have like 140 people showing up to this event. Are you getting a lot of backlash? Well, I know you are, but is it the same as the sex ed class?
So it's a little different, again, because we had the massive posting that flooded my inbox with both sides, though, really, honestly. We got a lot of, we're going to make you shut this down, and the library shouldn't be holding this because people don't read. And so they were emailing me.
Okay,
and
we're going to get into
I
that.
was the library.
We're going to get, because I got a call. We're going to get into that in a little bit, because I got a call from a guy, and although he wasn't the most articulate, I think his point was valid, and this is what he said. He said, people... Now, I'm going to use his verb.
Atheists.
People like you, okay?
Atheists.
This is what he said.
Atheists, right?
They have a prejudice. Oh, yeah, he used that word, and I think he's spot on correct. For people who don't think the way that they do, that somehow they're dumb. And I think there's a lot of that in your group.
He says because
my-
of his faith, you think he's a lesser person.
The people in your group, I'll tell you what he said. People in your group, and I'm not quoting now, who believe people who believe in faith, who have a connection to a higher being, whatever that might be, is somehow they're just stupid.
Yeah, so here's the thing, is that the sort of front runners of the atheist movement who were in the media a lot, back around 2000 or so, right, there was Dawkins, Harris,
Right.
Hitchens,
Right.
Hitchens, right?
who I am obsessed with. But go on.
He does
Aren't
like
we
him.
all?
And he's passed away. He's
Christopher
no longer
Hitchens
with
is a
us.
brilliant
and
man,
where
but-
is he, I wonder?
But that was what they did, right? They got out in the media and they were in your face and they were like, we are atheists and we are here and we believe in science and the rest of you are all foolish for believing what you
Right.
believe.
Right.
And so we do have that sort of attitude.
But do you think you're actively doing anything to squash that?
Well, yeah, actually, I think that the national groups are, on a national level, trying to move in a new direction. Again, like I said, atheism describes what I don't believe in. Humanism describes what I do believe in. So we're trying to go out there and really get into our communities. You know, we clean a side of a highway. We're doing things like that.
Yeah, but so does the Klan.
Sure. And we should all be doing things out there, not... The thing is, again, you know, free speech and all that, people are allowed to have their beliefs. But I do understand what that caller or writer is saying.
Because immediately I think he was put on the defensive. Because he's like, these people think I'm not stupid.
Right.
I have a connection to my Lord.
Right.
But I'm not stupid. I'm well educated.
But she is saying she doesn't believe that, and neither does the
We're going to
national
talk about
group.
all of it. We got more things to do. You got time?
Commercials? Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. All right, let's check the roads. All hits all the time. Star 98.3. It's the Jonas Brothers. Feeling so cool. It's 7:29. We have a guest in studio, and I want to give her as much airtime as possible. It's Samantha from SMASH, Southern Maryland area secular humanists, who is sponsoring the Drag Queen Story Hour
Correct.
at the Lexington Park Library. I think I got through all of it.
He wrote it down.
I did
He
write it down.
cheated.
I did write it down. The older I get, the more I have to write.
Sure.
So we talked a little bit in the last half hour about what this event is and why you're doing it. Well, let's talk a little bit about the pushback you're getting from it. Is the view worth the climb?
Yeah, so I feel like it is in this case. We obviously knew, based on our experience, that people would be a little bit upset.
You are a bunch of atheists in St. Mary's County, Maryland, the birthplace of Catholicism. So, yeah, you're going to get some pushback without a doubt.
And we knew that based on the sex ed class, too. But
Sure.
honestly, we didn't expect... we thought maybe it would actually be a little bit less because it is Pride Month. We are working with an LGBTQ group.
Sure.
We're trying to work with families in the area who have that identity and live that life, right? So we thought maybe people would be a little bit less worried about what was going on. And frankly, we thought they might have learned their lesson last time, that we rented a room in the library and that
Right.
you can't get our event canceled.
Right.
So let me
But
read.
that event, wasn't it canceled? Wasn't it moved? It was...
Yes, I mean the original story, looking back real quick in a basket, is in a little nutshell, is the library actually booked that class first. The library did.
Okay.
So it was sponsored by the library.
So the
originally.
library got
And they
from the
canceled it.
community. They canceled it,
We held
and
it.
then you sponsored the
Yes,
program.
Because
I got
frankly, I went to the county commissioners meeting, and it was the original Footloose, the whole town hall thing. It was.
There will be no
with John
dancing.
Lithgow.
Yeah.
It was exactly like that, and I was like, "Where am I? What is this place, St. Mary's County?"
There will be no dancing at the senior prom.
Exactly. It was just like that, and it made me so.
It made you so angry. You got your VW bug, went out to an abandoned barn, and started doing gymnastics to a song.
Yeah, I got in my E350 7.3 Power Stroke diesel that's a 4x4 and drove and reserved a room in the library.
Wow.
Let me ask you this, Samantha.
How many people were at that meeting?
It was packed. The county commissioners meeting, the public forum, I think it went on for 3 hours.
Was it primarily about the library? And you're kidding.
Yeah, so I had a
really?
friend who actually went through and time-stamped it all, like wrote, listen, because there was a couple things about culverts and ditches and whatever.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah, right.
legitimate business?
Yeah. And then the rest of it was there was, people supporting, people decrying, people, but there was so much prayer and holy roller stuff going on in that building, and demonizing of the instructor basically because she was LGBTQ herself. And
Okay, so let's talk about that a little bit. I had made the statement earlier. Do you think, or is there any truth that you're trying to normalize this? And you said,
Yes.
Well, yeah, to a certain extent, yes. And okay, so here's the thing. The percentage of people that would fall into this category is minute by any measure. Okay,
10% isn't minute, T.
Well, who are you putting at 10%?
which figure are we going with?
I'm
This is-
talking about the community, the LGBTQ community.
Well, first of all,
it's
we could
probably
start
over
and stop
that.
that. We could start and stop the conversation there. You guys have to stop adding letters.
Can't
Okay,
keep up.
come on, it's ridiculous.
You can shorten it. LGBTQ is fine.
Right,
Just stay
right.
there.
And Q is questioning you're queer?
Yeah.
Queer.
Lesbian,
Right? It started off.
Gay, LGB is bi, LGB
Trans.
And Q is queer.
Yeah.
But what queer is the
Yeah,
same
right.
as questioning?
So, yeah, I mean, some people use the other letter.
Okay.
Again.
I don't. Yeah. Okay.
So I think the point is that there's a lot of identities that are being represented, and that we need to.
I'm talking about that.
Okay.
I'm talking
all right, but
about
let's
the
take,
group.
Okay, let's take
part
that.
of
Let's
society.
take that. Let's take and say that's 10%. Okay, that would fall under that very large, ever-expanding
I think
umbrella.
It's more than that, but
all right,
anyway.
but then let's dissect that even further, and let's go down to transvestites. Is that wrong? What is that? You gave me a look. What is that? Is that wrong?
that's 1970s.
Yeah, right.
Well, what's wrong with that?
Yeah, so drag queens are drag queens. And
Yeah,
so
but
I
you say
think
I'm saying trans. What's
transgender.
Transgender, not transvestite.
Okay, Jesus,
Transgender.
this it's a landmine. I can't walk through
All you have
this.
to do is Google and read a little, and
But
you'll be fine.
that would be my full-time job.
He doesn't read, Samantha.
And on top of that, every day you change it.
it's transgender.
I love how I change it personally.
Right,
right.
it's
I'm
you.
in charge.
Yeah, I'm
now
speaking to
for-
you as the group. Every day, you have to admit. Come on, there's no way. If conservatives did this, your head would explode.
So here's the thing: as an ally, as a person who says that they support LGBTQ community, which I think that both of you say that you are okay with.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I don't care what people do with their lives.
Exactly.
Right.
So, as an ally, I have taken the time to sort of educate myself, because it's a lot to ask a transgender person every time somebody meets them. Just picture going through life and you're transgender, right? And every person asks, well, what's that mean? What's that? What am I supposed to do? What is, So as an ally, I've tried to educate myself so that I can sometimes answer questions when they come up and try to educate people without making those people do that heavy lifting. So to your question, transgender is not the same as transvestite. Transgender is having a feeling at a pretty young age, most of them, that they just don't fit in the normal gender norms.
Like Bruce Jenner.
And that they always wanted to be the opposite gender. And so some people will just sort of stay in a non-binary sort of place where they don't actually do anything medically, but they sort of live in both spaces. And some people will, of course, take the next steps and do hormonal
Post-op.
treatment. But that is not the same thing, and I want to be real clear about this. Transgender people are not drag queens. Drag queens are not transgender people. It is an entirely different issue that I see a lot in the comments.
And this is where it gets sticky.
Not separated.
So we can we could go in with a scalpel and dissect this even further. But at the end of the day, you end up with a very small populace.
Yes,
okay,
that's your point. Yes.
Yeah, it is my point. And if that is the point, so we've got this. I'm going to use the word abnormal because it is abnormal. It is not normal behavior. People denote normal as somehow being good or evil. That's not what normal is. Normal is what is normal. What is by and large? What is happening in the majority? That is normal behavior. Okay, it doesn't denote good or bad. That's a whole nother subject for I believe, a whole nother power.
She doesn't think that.
I got that, and I'm fine with it. But to take that behavior...
And the versus is true. Abnormal, in your opinion, just your opinion, doesn't denote bad.
No, not in my opinion. That is the truth.
Mm-hmm.
So I would
But
argue.
hold on one
I
second.
would argue that maybe you want to use the term minority,
but again,
instead of abnormal, because there's lots of things that you're saying. If you're saying it's not bad, maybe think about the language you're using and say, okay, you're in a very small minority.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be bad. You're in a minority. So when you do polling, for instance, you brought up, there's 25% of people in the United States now who poll at their unaffiliated when they check which religion box they are, right?
Right.
It's 25% of us. I don't pretend that all 25% of those don't believe in a God, right? So there's only 3% say, yes, 100% emphatically, I do not believe in a God. And then there's another 22% that's somewhere on a spectrum there, right? So
Right.
maybe they believe they're spiritual but not religious. Maybe they believe there's a higher power but they don't know what it is. Maybe there's a primordial God force that started the Big Bang, you know? And so they go, or maybe they do have a belief in God but they just don't like organized religion.
But what about the people who, and I don't necessarily subscribe to this theory, but I think I understand why they're saying it, and I don't think that there's an absence of truth there. By these events, okay, what you're doing is creating confusion, and you're creating a question in a child that probably they would grow out of. Because I was just having this conversation yesterday in the hallway with one of the gals at work here, and I know the gals, and she said she has a friend who happened to grow up in a family of boys, and when she was a little girl, she wanted to be a boy. They did all the fun stuff. Right? They peed standing
we don't
up.
have gender norms. Is that what you said?
What I'm saying, this is her story. I wouldn't begin to project.
You were like, boys and girls are raised the same, but now you're saying she wanted to be a boy because
she wanted to be a boy. She wanted to be.
Boys do get to do the fun stuff.
That's what she thought.
Right.
And so as a young girl, that's what she wanted. She wanted to be a boy, but she grew out of that.
Sure.
And I think that there is an effort to create that confusion. And to say, hey, let's embrace this. If my mother embraced every crazy notion I had, we would be in the emergency room every day. I wanted to be a superhero. I was convinced that if I had the right cape, I could fly. And that is why I jumped off the roof. Okay? Thankfully, I didn't do much damage. But you can't embrace every notion a child has. And especially at the child years, it is rife with confusion. They don't know who they are. They don't know what they're going to be. They don't know where life is going to take them. But then here's this stranger saying, hey, you could do this. Is that not right?
I don't think the drag queen is saying you can do this.
Yeah, firstly, the stranger that's bringing them to the library is their parent.
Right.
So again, I'm going to say it a bajillion times probably. If you don't like it, if you don't want them to be exposed to it, if you feel like it's somehow morally wrong, don't bring your kid.
Right.
So that point being said, I would argue that children are already playing with gender roles at a very young age, and that in the past, what we would do is point them in a direction that we wanted them to go in terms of what play was appropriate, what activities were appropriate.
And so now nothing's appropriate.
What clothing? Girls wore the...
Right.
So now there's no rules.
So let me finish my point. Then now I feel like people are saying, no big deal. My son wore a skirt. He wanted to wear a skirt. He tried on my high heels. He wanted to wear my makeup. No big deal. He can figure out who he is when he gets older.
But that's the problem.
I
they can't
demonize that behavior.
But that's the problem.
So,
when they make that kind of bold statement, and
who
they
makes
say,
what bold statement?
Let's take a young man who might be wrestling with identity. Okay. And they make the proclamation, I feel like this isn't right for me, I'm going to dress as a woman, okay? And they make this bold proclamation at 13.
Okay.
At 17, they might be a completely different person, and probably will be a completely different person. And now they've made this bold statement. They've made this declaration. They've gone to school in a dress. They've dealt with all the ridicule. They've done all of this. And then at 17, they go... I'm not really, this isn't what I want to be doing anymore.
And then you should be accepting of that change back.
I'm telling you.
So here's let me go ahead and carry out that part of the conversation. So let's say, hypothetically, that a 13-year-old decides that maybe they want to be a girl and maybe they want to explore that. Maybe they want to start wearing makeup. Maybe they want to dress a little bit more feminine. Maybe they want to go to school in a dress. Maybe they want to go to a dance in a dress. Maybe they want to wear makeup. Me, as a parent, I say, go ahead, why not? Be your best self, right? Hang on. So then, if afterwards at 17, they're like, you know what? I don't actually want to wear makeup to school all the time. I'm still going to keep that sort of androgynous dress because that fits my personality, but I've decided that I'm definitely a boy, but maybe I'm gay, right? Mm-hmm. Why is that any skin off our noses as parents to let them go through that process on their own in loving support and guidance and support their choices.
It's
and
not.
What does it matter to whoever else is in the school? What does
It's
it matter
not.
to you? And what does it matter to the people who want to come and protest?
It's not, and it doesn't. But here's what it does do. It forces this child to. They've made this declaration. They've probably gotten the support of certainly your community, and likewise. And then if later on in life they feel like I'm not. Then they're turning away. They're being traitorous to the.
No.
Yeah, listen, you guys.
No, T.
You guys are not being realistic when you're having this conversation.
I think we're being
I'm 100% being realistic.
I don't think you are.
Especially when
let
it comes.
Let me tell you something else.
Sure, go ahead.
Honestly, the 14, 16, 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds that are in school, they don't care. They don't care.
They don't care because they've been exposed to it this much.
Sure. Yeah. And so that's
okay.
Great.
From 3 to
But
8.
is it great?
If they come in and they wear makeup one day and don't wear makeup the next day, you know what their peers care about? Not much. They really don't. And they don't have the same reaction that we do as adults brought up in a society that's changing.
Because of things like the drag queen story hour,
right?
Because it's like technology. If I could go off track a little bit, it's like younger kids with technology. They've been around it more than we have. We, our generation, we are more standoffish. Don't trust it. I'm not gonna. The guy calls up with a weird phone number. I'm just gonna hang up. When millennials and younger Gen Z, whatever, they've been around it. They've been around technology. They trust it. They use it. They're all about it. And
yes,
I think that's
they've
the
been
same
exposed
way.
to it more.
They've been exposed to it more, which is why
and
they are
there's more of it.
Hold on. Which is why when they get to that 14, 16, 17, 18 in school, like you were saying, if there is a peer who is going through something, they really don't care.
And all I'm saying is,
you get the jerks, but we have jerks in society.
And all I'm saying is this, and this is probably be my last point on this. You've made my point. And the point is this. The more you're exposed to something,
correct,
the more it becomes commonplace.
Sure.
And the more of it there is.
Terrible.
The more,
not necessarily
the
terrible.
more
Again,
of it.
I'm not as...
You're making it sound like that being gay is a choice.
I am not... Listen, I'm not...
That's what you said. You said if you're around it more, you
Take it up with Anne Heche. I'm not passing judgment on anybody.
Oh, you always bring up Anne Heche. She's...
I
it's
don't
like
know.
I said earlier, she's a little goofbally.
What? She's crazy? What?
A little crazy.
Okay, look, she made the loud and clear declaration she's always been gay. And then the next month she wasn't.
And
I don't know.
Is still out. All I'm saying is...
All I'm saying is this.
Wait, let me... You spoke on and on. What I'm saying is, just because you're around it... doesn't mean you become it. It's not.
You don't go as a 3-year-old and see a drag queen, and then all of a sudden you're like, you know what? I'm a drag queen.
You know
too.
what
It's
you
just
guys?
Not how it works.
You know what you guys do agree on? That we all agree on? Vaccinations.
Yeah.
Oh well, come on. That's those
whole
people.
Other hour.
Listen, those people are nuts. Okay. This is where I think there is some validity. And again, everybody wants to assign evil and good. I'm not assigning either one of them. I don't care what people do with their lives. It's not for me to judge. I don't care who you love. I don't care if you want to get married. Fantastic. Go be happy. All I'm telling you is this. The more commonplace things are, the more of it you have. And I see... You're shaking. Why are you shaking your head?
I disagree with you. Are you telling me that if a kid is brought up, if Heather has 2 mommies and Bobby has 2 daddies, that Heather's going to turn out to be a lesbian and Bobby's going to turn out to be?
No, I'm not.
Then I've proven my point.
But is that child more or less likely to associate that as a norm?
Oh, they'll associate it as a norm because I have 2 parents who love me, and they're different than my other kids' friends or my other kids, my friends' parents, but it's just different.
Samantha,
minorities.
Thank you for coming in.
We'll have to have you in again. It's just too fun not to.
Listen, and again, I want to emphasize this because this really is where the argument begins and stops. If you don't like this event. Don't go to the event.
The Drag Queen Story Hour.
Because it's America, and that's what you're supposed to do. But I appreciate you coming in. we got to get you straightened out. There's so much. There's so much work that I have to do here.
I'm feeling I'll be back.
I have so much work to do with
now
you,
you have
Samantha.
my phone number and my email.
Oh my God! And I said God.
They
Yes.
believe in good.
Yes,
they believe in good.
We all do.
I only believe in one less God than you, by the way. You don't
That's
believe
right.
in the other 2,000 that lots of other people in times in
You don't
history
know
have
that.
believed in.
12 minutes in front of 8 o'clock, 7:48. Our phone lines are open for you. All right, there you go. That is it in a nutshell, as they say.
Oh, that's not even close to being in a nutshell.
No, I feel like there's a lot of fields we haven't toiled. But
How
thank
many
you.
members? How many members are in your group? The Southern Maryland
In
area.
Smash, in particular.
Yeah.
So again, I'm going to plug my wider organization.
Sure,
which
go
is
ahead, have a
Washington
ball.
Area Secular Humanists, and we have 14
You guys got to
chapters.
shorten the name. That's day one.
Wait,
Wash.
the Washington.
Smash.
Okay,
we
so
have a
you
thing
have
about
14. You have 14 branch organizations out of the Washington.
Yeah, so from
Wash-
Roanoke to Baltimore, we have 14 chapters in the area.
Wow.
We have one in Roanoke. We have one in Lynchburg. That one's fun. We have
Oh
one
my
in
gosh.
Charlottesville, one in Fredericksburg, one in Richmond.
So how many total members do you think you have?
Yeah, so there's a difference between paying members and members.
Sure,
right? So
right.
we have about 9,000 people who follow us in some form across the region.
And I hate to even say this, but if there's somebody out there who wants to join your group,
wash.org.
all right.
Thank you for the plug.
You're very, very welcome. All right, well, there you go, boys and girls. Yes, boys and girls.
Folks.
Everybody.
Right.
Everybody together.
All you humans.
Yes.
So we thank you again for coming in.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure. Good luck to you in your
Definitely a
event
pleasure.
and whatever other craziness you're doing. It is 11 minutes in front of 8 o'clock. Let's check the roads.